Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about The Letters from Them, Return to Hammersmore, out October 30th on Steam Hammer. This album has 12 tracks, 49 minutes in length, and this is the band's third full-length studio album and the final chapter on the trilogy that started with the previous two records. You finally get to know what happens to these characters. I love these concept albums that have this horror theme that surrounds not only the music but the story, the vocals, and the atmosphere that the album puts together when all of those elements are in the right place at the right time. And this is an album that really delivers across all fronts. I love the structure that it has. It starts off with an intro that really sets the table. It gives you a little bit of a glimpse of where the album is coming from, where it currently is, and perhaps where the story is going to take you as you go down deeper into this album. So I love the fact that it opens up with an incredible intro that really sets the tone for the characters, for the story, and for the record itself. Then throughout the album, you're going to get songs that have intros that really help you also understand where the characters are going and perhaps where the story is moving to. A couple of interludes that connect the tracks and allow you to once again flow a lot better from song to song and not just enjoy the tracks for what they have to give to you musically, but also understand the fluidity of the story that they're telling you from track to track. And then it closes it off with an outro that's pretty much the curtain call on the story on this trilogy. So from a structural perspective, this album is absolutely perfect. It's built exactly the way it needs to be in order to galvanize the listener and keep you engaged with the story that they're trying to tell you and really close off the chapter, the final chapter in that story. Once you get down to the musical side of the album, there are a lot of different elements at play. But first I want to say that I really enjoy the fact that they allowed every single instrument to have its moment, to have its piece, to be really in the forefront at some point in time throughout this record, on some tracks more than others. But this is an album that there's no element that is hidden within it. You hear the keyboards, you hear the bass, you hear the guitars, you hear the drums. Everything has its time, everything has its place, and everything is coming together in order to really paint a vivid picture of what is happening as far as the lyrics and the story of the record is concerned. So I want to start off by saying that because that's not always the case, and I really love the fact that all the elements were there, some with a bigger presence than others, but all of them were there working together in order to really allow the story to jump off the pages, jump off the lyrics. Within those elements themselves, I really feel like there's three things that have to be addressed, and that is the guitars, the drums, and the keyboards. All of them for different reasons. I love the guitars on this album, very driven, very heavy, but at the same time also flexible in terms of what they did and what they had to offer to the overall soundscape of the record. They're very diverse. You don't get just a one-size-fits-all style or approach. This is a classic heavy metal sounding record top to bottom, but there's a lot of other influences at play. I also felt that there were some symphonic, very little symphonic influences, and also some thrash metal elements as far as the guitars and overall sound experience are concerned. So I love what the guitars had to offer to this album. Very alive, very rich in its sound, very powerful, always pushing the song where they needed it to go. They were really the motor behind this record. I really felt that this was an album that has perhaps two motors, the vocals and the guitars. But from a musical perspective, the guitars are really the one in the driving seat, dictating the pace, dictating the direction of where this record needs to go. The drums have an important element to this album. To me, they were one of the more consistent, heavy elements throughout the record. When they wanted heaviness out of this record, more often than not, they went into the drums. And that's what allowed the record to have a profound sound, a really solid basis, solid foundation for that heaviness when it needed to be there. Still allowing the guitars to be very melodic, to be very driven, to push perhaps the record in different directions. So having that consistency out of the drums really allowed the guitars to be as diverse as they are. Last but not least, I have to mention the keyboards, because sometimes in these records, in these concept albums, there's always this idea that if you push it more towards the symphonic arena, you're allowed to create an album that's more cinematic, and by being more cinematic, you're able to tell a better story. I don't agree with that necessarily. I don't think that's always the case. It might be the case sometimes, but not all the times. And I feel like sometimes when bands do that, those symphonic elements, the keyboard, the orchestration, the choirs, almost start to overshadow everything that is happening within the album and take away from the story itself. It becomes almost a musical, in a musical that's really congregated into the music side of things. The story pushes into a second plan, and that's not what they did with this record. They used the keyboards in order to give melody to the album, in order to give a little bit of an atmosphere, to bring a little bit of a somber vibe to some of the songs, to lighten the mood in some of the tracks, even though that doesn't happen very often because this is a very dark-driven, story-driven record. But I like what they did here with the keyboards. They didn't allow the keyboards to become the main conductor of sound, to become the main conductor of the overall experience that this album has to offer. This is not a symphonic album. It has keyboards in it, but the keyboards are very subdued in what they do and the amount of presence that they have throughout the record. And I really enjoy that. It gave atmosphere, but it didn't take any of the darkness. It didn't take any of the heaviness, any of the presence that this album has across all 12 tracks. The vocals are incredible. What an incredible range you're gonna get on this record. I kind of reminded me a little bit of Merciful Fate, King Diamond at times, as far as the range and how the songs at times were constructed. I felt there were a lot of similarities between Merciful Fate, King Diamond and this record, and how all the elements came together. And I love that. I love that big range. I love that it allows the characters to come to life. You're really able to paint each character with a different brush, giving them their unique DNA, their unique delivery, their unique tone. To me, that enhances the overall experience of listening to a concept album like this. And when you talk about a horror concept album, that becomes even more important. You need to feel the pain, you need to feel the fear, you need to feel the darkness, the evil, if you will, within each and every single character. And the only way you can do that is by changing your tone, by changing your delivery when you're using the lines of those specific characters, so that you start to understand who they are throughout the record, and you also start to understand their character, their demeanor, and what they're there for. So I love the vocals on this album. I love how diverse they are and how incredibly delivered they are across every single song on this record. Overall, this is an album that just hits me home. I love these records. I love this kind of experience. And this album is coming out right before Halloween. Perfect time. I mean, this is one of those albums that you can listen to on Halloween as you're getting ready to perhaps give out some candy. It just has that vibe. It has that horror feel to it. It has that dark presence, that dark atmosphere, almost that mist that permeates throughout the whole record, will permeate throughout your living room as you're listening to it. It's one of those incredible Halloween, perhaps themed records that's coming out at the right time. As far as tracks are concerned, outside of the singles, I really want to touch on 3 songs that I enjoyed tremendously. And I want to start off with Age of Ascension. This is the second song, technically the first track. The first one is an intro, this is the one that comes right after, but to me this is technically the first song on the album, and it's a very driven track. It's heavy, it's powerful, it has a high octane presence to it and how it comes across. The drums are very heavy and they add the perfect foundation for this track. I felt that the guitars were a little bit more diverse in sound. The solo on this track is outstanding, and that's something that it's going to be pretty much the hallmark throughout the record. The solos on this album are phenomenal. Always bringing a different element, always bringing a different presence, structured in a different way, and really enhancing the overall atmosphere that the tracks have to offer. I love the solo on this specific track. Vocally, the range is very diverse, and it really sets the tone, because if you've never heard of this band and you're listening to this album for the first time or second time and you're getting introduced to this band through this record, this song really sets the tone for what this album is going to be, not only musically but vocally. You start to get a feel of what you're in for as far as the whole record is concerned when you start listening to this track. In that 4 is the perfect opener in how it's constructed and how it's put together and in how it's delivered. Next, The Tumultuous Voyage to Hammersmore. I love this song. That's the one that comes right after, and it doesn't lose any momentum whatsoever. Everything that galvanized you with the Age of Ascension, it continues to the next track. You just feel like it's the perfect continuation as far as the tempo, as far as the drums sound, the heaviness of the drums, the foundation that they give to the track, but also how the guitars play, how driven they are, how the tempo that they give to the song. This is a track that really has a great tempo all the way through. It just has great momentum to it. It becomes heavier in the chorus. You definitely feel a much bigger presence as far as the song is concerned in the chorus, but that heaviness in the chorus does not damage the momentum that this track has, that it builds up from the first go all the way to the end. You just feel like the heaviness increases and it decreases as you move in and out of the chorus. The guitars become the center stage of the song, really driving the track, almost like the horses on a carriage, really pushing the song where it needs to go, while the vocals are behind it, controlling it and dictating if they need to go a little bit faster or if they need to go a little bit slower. So there's that dynamic between the vocals and the guitars as far as the man on the carriage controlling the horses as you move through this song. I love that ability that the track has to kind of give you that sense, to give you that foundation. The vocals are phenomenal. They have a very dark atmosphere as you move through this song. And at the times when they use a little bit of backing vocals, those backing vocals add volume more than they add heaviness. I really felt that that's something that's also true throughout the record. I never felt that the choirs or backing vocals were there to make the song heavy. They were there to give a little bit of more atmosphere, to give a little bit more of a layer to how the track is put together, but also to create volume, because the song maybe is gaining a little bit of heaviness as far as the sound is concerned. So they wanted to balance that out, and how they balanced that out was with the choirs or backing vocals to give the overall vocal line a little bit more presence, a little bit more volume, and that's exactly what happens in this song. Last but not least, Waken, one of my favorite songs on the record. The guitar opening is absolutely phenomenal. The solo that comes after makes it even better. This is a song that starts off in such an incredible way, very different from everything that you heard up until this point and everything that you're going to hear beyond it. The track drops a little bit of intensity. It's a song that really has two momentums. It starts off almost at the bottom, at the basement, but you always feel like it's growing, and there's this crescendo that the track is always moving upwards until it reaches its climax, and the climax is the chorus. The chorus comes in with a lot of power, a lot of heaviness, but also a lot of melody, and the backing vocals add to that volume. Here's a track where they use backing vocals in the chorus, not to add heaviness, but to add volume, to make the presence of the track feel bigger, making that crescendo feel even bigger. So I love how the song is constructed. I love the drops that it has. After that first chorus, you get another guitar solo, and then the song kind of goes into this cycle, and it goes back into that drop, grows back again into that crescendo of the chorus. It explodes within the chorus. The chorus is very hooky, very catchy. The lyrics in the chorus help that hookiness that the song has, and the backing vocals also add to that, becoming a lot more memorable. You're going to be singing this song after the first time that you're listening to it. It immediately becomes ingrained in your brain. This is it, guys. Them with Return to Hammersmore, out October 30th on Steam Hammer. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.